All right. Right now, we're going into part three, and so further deepening some actionable steps clients can take for alleviating financial stress. So, first one, and you've probably heard it many times before, but actually do it this time, please. It's helpful, and just even the act of writing it down can be helpful. But develop a realistic budget and plan collaboratively with people who might be involved in it. So whether if it's just you at the house, then it might be just you. But if you have a spouse or a partner, um, involve them in the process and have a look at what you absolutely need, what you really want, what you kind of want, what you like a little bit. Maybe you know there might be overlap there where both of you decide, what, we we rarely we have three subscriptions, and yes, I know subscriptions are only $10 or $15 each a month, but if you both decide, look, we're trying to make cuts, 80% of the shows we watch are on Netflix or on Disney Plus or Crave or what have you, we can go a few months without these other shows. Then and look for overlaps where you both agree that these things are just some likes, some simple likes, and they're niceties, but you don't care that much if you have them. And then maybe start there. That can be your first round of cuts. See what the budget looks like. Okay, now we're going into kind of third tier wants. You know, might be certain. Yeah, it's hard. It's everybody's very unique, so it's really subjective. In my life, it might be certain. Probably be Xbox Game Pass. Like I pay for that every month, but I probably only play one or two games. So should I just by rights? I probably should just buy the game and not pay for Game Pass. But those two or three times a year when a new game comes out and my friends are on there, it's that I really like that. But maybe it's something that I look at a bit more, where I do like having it, but I don't care that much if it's gone. Things like that. Maybe if it's with you and your partner. Um, maybe you always have every weekend or every other weekend or every month some sort of outing together, and it costs a certain amount. Maybe you don't have to stop doing those things at all, but maybe you have to reduce their frequency, or instead of going out to a $200 a month dinner, do something that $70 or $80, or don't instead of having two or three drinks with dinner, have only one or two, and then find those savings, and then look at the budget. Where are the numbers now? Kind of just keep going down this. Like you're gonna want to rank your priorities. So it's gonna be like shelter, food, clothing, means of transportation, and those are gonna be high priorities and even needs. And then everything else there, it doesn't all have to be all or nothing wants, but start to rank some of these wants and niceties into their order of importance, and see, okay, maybe you can still have some of those things that you really really want. Maybe you can still have those, and there's things that you want but less so, and you're able to cut those, and keep looking at your budget, and doing it collaboratively. It's in that moment you're both you're in the same struggle. You're with the other person. You're able to support one another, make decisions with each other, and be fair about it too. If my partner or my wife, she buys clothes a lot more frequently than I do, but I spend more money on alcohol probably than she does, and so maybe if she says, I don't drink a whole lot or anything, but maybe if she says, okay, I'm gonna buy one less clothing item a month, and that's $50, well, then maybe I can look at that and say, okay, I will I won't go out for a weekend or buy like a 12 pack of beer, you know, two or three, normally it's like twice a month, if that. but maybe I'll buy an 8-pack or something, and I'll cut down in my own way and kind of work with each other and be fair about it and cordial, and or maybe that's a really high priority of me to have that many, and not such a priority for her to have that many clothes, but cutting out like an Xbox Game Pass, or some other thing that I like to do, like buying lunch now and then or something like that. That can be my contribution to the budget reduction. So yeah, get that budget, and the very act of assembling a budget too can have a profound de-stressing effect. If all these numbers, if you're worried already about financial stress, and you got numbers like, okay, rent is $2,000 or $2,500 a month, or our mortgage is $4,000 or $5,000 a month, and the car payment's $1,000, and saving for kids' college is $1,000 or whatever, and debt repayment is $1,000, and it's just all these numbers floating around with no rhyme or reason, and then you get thought like, okay, what are all my expenses? And for 2 or 3 minutes, you're there trying to calculate everything, and maybe you're overestimating some things, or you're underestimating other things, and it's just a flurry of thought, and then you get a call and you gotta go back to work, or dinner's ready, or it's time to put the kids to bed, or what have you, and then that's where it stops, and then it might be 2-3 hours go by, and you're able to, okay, I'll think about it again, and it's just okay, so that number, this number, okay, I'm making this much, etc., and then again, it's another distraction or obligation or responsibility comes around, and it doesn't go anywhere. It's just kind of just these periods of stress and distractions or responsibilities, stress, and it can go in this pattern. But by writing it down, you kind of etch it into stone. Okay, this is what it is. This is exactly the number we need to hit to be flatlined and making all of our obligations, and we're here. And so there's $1,000 a month difference that we have to find somewhere. So where's that going to come from? And then that's when you can begin looking at, okay, we've written down all these things. Let's start prioritizing them and ranking them. But just having it down on paper and knowing the number and one number to look at, rather than a constant flurry of the 30 or 40 different expenses or even more that flow in and out of a house in a given month. That itself can just have a profound reduction or stress reducing effect. Next, we're going to look at some stress reduction techniques. So one that I personally am fond of is it's in the realm of being mindful and taking pauses throughout your day, and just appreciating what's around you, your moment in space and time. And it's a skill that I was almost a deterrent of it for a long time. I'm thinking, how can that, just pausing for a minute or two, and just, I'm here, I got my hand here, the sun is shining, I have my computer screen here, just even for a minute or two, or especially if you find yourself just in that flurry of racing thoughts, stress, all the emotional flurry, taking a moment or two, and it's easier said than done, because it kind of takes that notice to, okay, I'm doing this again, okay, let's take a break, sit back, bird's eye view, or just your view of around you. Like, there's some beautiful plants there, some pieces of paper, my coffee. Actually, I should have my coffee right here. And just relax into your environment and the here and now, rather than the there and then. And so it's in that realm. This technique is in that realm of mindfulness, but it's again alluding back to one of the first videos, just on like the mind does not like seeing a detraction in or backsliding of quality life. It prefers a steady growth, like a growth, and things are improving the most, and then at the very least it'll be somewhat satisfied with a maintenance of quality of life. But when it starts to think of, okay, there or then, it's going to be a backsliding, it really, really doesn't like that. But what you can do in these moments is sit down, and even for just a minute or two, and you can think through it, write it down on a piece of paper, consult with, and that sounds a bit formal, but have a nice chat with your partner or a loved one. But just think about the things that you do have in your life and that you do still have, that you do appreciate in life. And it's not all a loss all the time. You can gain social connections for free, or reconnect with a friend with a phone call for essentially free. You can go on a walk with your spouse, and you still have the use of your body, perhaps. But you're still able to, at least if you have the use of your mind, you're still able to appreciate just some aspects of life that you still have, and show gratitude towards that. And if you are in a state where, maybe you're in a wheelchair or quadriplegic, and there's other things, it might be more difficult to get into that state, or to appreciate what you still have left. And I'm not saying it's going to be easy. It's simple, but it's not easy. But focusing constantly on loss and the negativity and the trajectory that you're on, and just stewing on these less than ideal circumstances, again, comes back to the question of what exactly are these thoughts doing for you. These thoughts aren't necessarily productive. It can sometimes feel productive, almost. I'm sitting down and I'm worried. So if I'm worried, it must be important. So I care, and that's it. Where's the action? Where's the how is that improving your quality of life for the better, or is it just going to be like that for 6 months, and you just hope and fingers crossed that something happens or there's some relief somewhere? So sitting down with yourself, though, and appreciating what you do have. You might want a better TV or a faster phone, a nicer car, a bigger house, etc. But if you look around, think, there's no leaks on the roof. At least, we don't have a roof repair coming up right now. Maybe that provoke anxiety because your roof's on year 13, and maybe in a couple of years there's some roof repair coming up. But for right now there isn't, and I have some appreciation for that, and that can go a long way to helping, because it can show it's not all doom and gloom. And again, going back to those default mode networks, the brain can get just conditioned to, when it's not actively being engaged or asked of an activity, or to put its resources to something, it'll kind of just go back in its resting state to the things that you constantly think about. And you can't control it. It takes it. These thought patterns form naturally, and without necessarily conditioning them, your brain will go back to a certain place. But with effort and conscious thought of thinking to yourself, I don't want to sit down here. It's my evening. It's half an hour before bed. I don't appreciate lying in bed all night with a racing mind. I've been doing that for a month straight. This is no good for me. Begin thinking of, when those thoughts come up, okay, well, what do I have to appreciate in life here, as a counter, and training the mind for, as soon as those negative thoughts come up, they're followed closely behind, and as you go forward through the process, it'll happen faster and more naturally and with less effort over time, like any skill. Where these negative self-defeating thoughts will be countered or closely followed by, we don't get to go on that trip this year, and I haven't told the kids yet, but you know what? I love my kids, they love me. I'm so happy to have a family. At least I have a family to even consider and to think about. That could be That could just be an example, something like that. Just one sec. So that's one skill. Learning to show appreciation for yourself and your situation and the things that you do have and the people around you and the person that you are. This next one is, it's not necessarily counseling related, but it's somewhere there. Somewhere in the realm of counseling or financial techniques, but building an emergency fund gradually. And this is more so, it's more important to save, and you can go down the rabbit hole of, prioritizing debt repayments, of, pay down your credit card first before the mortgage. And, well, maybe not, depending on the rules, but maybe a credit card before the line of credit at 10%. And, then like the car payment might be at 8%. So you want to get pay off the credit card, then the credit line, then the car, then the house, and dependent upon obligations, because credit cards are a bit easier to let slide, but then they have these brutal interest rates. So that aside, this is more so about the importance of developing the habit of saving and scrutinizing and sticking to some sort of budget than it is the perfect debt repayment kind of flow of a hierarchy of interest rates. But setting aside something, even if it's just $20 a week, $5 a week, whatever it is, and finding somewhere in your budget to glean that out. And even if it does mean that you're leaving that $5 on the credit card, which certainly isn't ideal in a perfect scenario. Ideally, you'd get rid of all your or most of your high interest debt first before you start saving. But in this with this intervention or this technique, it's more about the habit of, okay, I will save that $5 and I will scrutinize my budget and I'll have a second thought. Maybe if you looked at your whole budget and you're down to the things that you really, really appreciate, and these might be small things like a simple coffee or a donut now and then, and you're kind of really wringing the towel dry on what you can cut that aren't necessities. But you think you might have a second thought to yourself. Well, if I can even save $5 a week, $20 a week, well, in 6 months that's going to be hundreds of dollars. And it's just like, and you might think twice. It might help you think twice. You know what? I don't really care about having that coffee, or instead of going for a drive and burning $5 or $10 of gas to go to this place, I will, like, I've been really proud of myself. The past 2 months I've been able to save up $100, and I like seeing that number growing. I appreciate it. It's kind of an act, or not an act. It is a representation of my commitment to myself and my future and my family, of my commitment to improving our situation. And I don't want to see that number start to backslide or slow down. And maybe I'd even like to see it increasing a bit. What else can I cut and get it? Maybe there's a bit of excitement there. You know what? I always, every time it's someone's birthday, I always buy an expensive cake for them. But this time I'll make it and I'll save a bit of money, and I'm sure everybody will still eat the cake. Hopefully, anyway. Or it might be a funny story. It might end up being a funny story. So things like this. So that's another strategy. It's just building a small savings commitment, or building the habit of saving, and with that will come the scrutiny of, you'll further scrutinize that budget that you've created, and also be a bit exciting, and kind of show that you are able to do some of these things. And even if though, yeah, paying off high interest debt instead of letting something sit in a savings account at 1 or 2% is technically more optimal financially. If you keep saving and then eliminate some of these costs, well, that's going to be quite the improvement if you can bake the cake instead of buying it or what have you, and save $30 or $40. Well, that would be multiple years worth of interest on that credit card at that price. So there's something to be said about that too. Next, and it's in line with going to your bank, and some more serious debt management strategies where it's negotiating with creditors or exploring consolidation options with your bank or credit union or whoever you're with. And in that, there might be strategies to talk about, like, fears of going into that meeting if they'll just shun you away and say, that's your problem, buddy. There might be fears of just a negative reaction, or just even speaking it. We've spoken to this a little bit, but having those conversations and seriously going down and having a professional go over all your numbers with you, go over your options, and sitting down, that can be a very positive example. And again, it's going to put pen to paper. The numbers are going to be there. There's an air of seriousness to it too. You go into the bank and you talk with a professional and you lay it all on the table and you sit there for an hour, and there's a degree that has to come with it of acceptance of your situation, which can have spillover effects to other things. Again, once you accept that your situation is dire to varying degrees, then maybe you'll look back at your budget again after that meeting and think to yourself, you know what, those things that were secondary wants that I really didn't want to cut yet, you know what, I actually I'd rather get out of this 4 months sooner than not. And so it can just be very helpful sitting down with a professional, but working up the courage, thinking of what to say, the questions to ask, that can be something that we can look at in therapy. And then along with that, though, we're going to be looking at promoting long-term behavioral changes. So whether that's improving your financial literacy, I was baffled. It was only a year or two ago, it was somebody in my life that was close, like a friend of a friend or something like that, but they literally thought credit cards were free money and the minimum payment was it. And so they maxed out something on like 5 or 10 grand, and they thought, oh, this is great, like I only have to pay back like $50 a month at a time or something. And they had no idea that all they were paying was a little bit of the interest. And they caught it very early on and were pretty shocked and kind of peeved off and salty that they'd done that to themselves. But improving someone's financial literacy for the long term, and that way, as things go on and hopefully they get out of a very stressful situation, they're less likely to find themselves in a situation like that. They go into a car dealership and they just think, oh, okay, the minimum payment for 7 years, oh yeah, we can afford that. Well, the interest rate's 10% or something, when they might be able to go get a used car that's a year or two older and still very much so the same car, but perhaps the upfront, the interest rate, they always get you with the used cars, they're a bit higher, but the actual monthly payment might be $20 higher, but it's only for 6 years or 5 years. And and I don't know if in that thought example the math works out positively, but they might be able to look at certain deals as they go through life and think, you know what, that is a good deal, I will capitalize on that, I'm able to. Or no, that's not a good deal, I'll have a second thought. And just as they approach various things in their life with this understanding, they'll have hopefully a less likelihood of finding themselves in this situation again, tacked onto as well as the memories of the emotions and struggles that they're currently going through and hopefully will pull themselves out of, as strong reminders of, I don't want to find myself in that situation again. Yeah, if I sign on to this car payment, and there's another construction job that gets delayed, or a whole sector-wide layoff or something, that's really going to be pulling it tight again. But if we get this car that's $200 a month cheaper, then that gives us a bit more wiggle room to save, to invest. Things like this will be on their mind. And another one can be setting boundaries on impulse purchases. So, like a common one is maybe a 24 or 72-hour rule, where if something is not dire, like maybe it's you gotta get, your car blows a tire, or you hit a horrible pothole, and you need that thing to get to work. You might have to spend 500 or $1,000 or what have you to get that fixed immediately. But if things are a want, like maybe a new TV, and there's nothing technically wrong with your current TV, but you'd like to get one that's a bit bigger, or a newer phone, or there's a flash sale on various clothing, or what have you. And in these examples, the if you take to yourself and you pause, like on these wants specifically, but I will wait 24 hours to purchase that thing, or I will wait 72 hours to purchase that thing. And something insidious in marketing that's certainly prevalent is, you'll search up something online, and it'll come up with, buy it right now for 20% off, but you only have, and there's a timer counting down, and you only have 10 hours once you've accessed the site, or something like that, or what have you. And so marketers know this, that it's a lot, if someone's on the site, it's a whole lot easier to get that impulse buy than it is to get them to return to the site. So they want to get you while they have you. But if you set a rule and you stick to it, and even if it's eating out, and you walk by some place and it smells delicious, and it's a new restaurant on your walk home, and yeah, my God, it smells good. It's ramen or whatever, and it's wow, that's really good food. And you're there, and you think, okay, I'm not gonna get it today. That's $15 or $20. But look, if I really want it, I'll get it in 3 days if it's still on my mind. And then 3 days goes by, and probably after an hour, it's probably out of your mind, even sooner than that. And now you've saved. Even if they had a great deal, like a lunch special on for $10 or $15, it's like, well, you think on it, and it's like, okay, well, even though that is a pretty good deal for eating out at lunch, did I really miss it? Did it take away that much from my quality of life? And so just applying this rule to various things, because even if something seems like an incredible deal, and I'm a victim of this too. Sometimes a deal is so good that it's almost like you're losing money to not get that thing, and perhaps in some of those times, this rule is going to be very difficult to apply to, and maybe have a bit of flexibility with yourself. But if getting a new TV is on your mind, and you search it up, and the first day that it comes up, you think, okay, I gotta get one, and buy one right then. Well, maybe you're gonna miss out on an even better deal down the road. Thinking on these things for a few days or weeks or months, and then next thing you know, you do see a deal that's too good to pass up, and it's the best deal you've seen in weeks and months of research, and you jump on it, and you're able to afford it, and things like this. But so that's kind of that rule. And then kind of on an ongoing basis, just monitoring progress is my role as well. Now, whether or not, normally the cadence of counseling starts with weekly or bi-weekly sessions with people, and we get to the root and the source, and some solutions together, about how are we going to tackle this emotional, financial problem of theirs. But then on an ongoing fashion, it tends to start more with a lot more frequency and then taper off to monthly or quarterly, or just as seasons come around, like maybe Christmas is a big spending season for a lot of people. You know, times of the year, and people just come in and they just come in as needed, or around certain times of the year, like maybe they know they're going to get suckered in on the, there's like 3 Boxing Day sales now, like the week before Boxing Day, and like the week after, like it's, you know, things like that, and they know they're a sucker for those deals, and maybe they need to come in at that time of the year to help not overspend too much and blow their budget. So we're just going to be monitoring progress with some follow-up sessions as needed, as what the client determines is beneficial. And so that really ends off this series on financial stress management. I didn't intend to make each of these videos to be almost 20 minutes or half an hour. I was just kind of speaking off the cuff a little bit. But in closing, one of the worst things a person can do when it comes to finances is stick their head in the sand and ignore it. These things really and truly have an insidious way of spiraling out of control. And whether or not that's the situation that you're in, or that you see yourself heading into, and or that you just want to avoid altogether, the chickens will eventually come home to roost, and that situation is much more difficult to get out of. And then sometimes you might find yourself with, having to make extreme budgetary cuts, like selling a second, that you have their family or household has 2 cars, selling one of them just to get by, and or doing no trips, no outings, just really less than ideal quality of life, and maybe even like picking up a part-time job that you don't really care for at all, and pulling 60-70 hour work weeks and like really seriously grinding. And there's nothing wrong with that at all, but it depends what you want your outcome to be, and the earlier you catch it, generally the more options you have. So if this is something that you're struggling with, do your best to, even if it's uncomfortable and it's inconvenient and what have you, talk to your bank, sit down with your spouse, come see me, ask for help. And the earlier in the process, the better. And it's the same with financial stress. It's the same thing with serious disease. It's the same thing with a lot of things in life. The earlier you can catch it, the less extreme and pervasive measures need to be taken to help someone be better off and going forward. So with that said, thank you so much for listening to this little mini series, and I hope you were able to get some benefit out of it. Thank you.